Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Before we can get into the 2025 wrap-up type videos, before we get into the 2026 type videos, I need to wrap up my December. December reading went actually quite well. I finished a lot of books and considering the fact that I was gone from the 23rd on, I was able to get a lot of reading in a short amount of time. So let's go through it. I'm proud to announce to you that I finally finished reading Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, An Indian History of the American West by D. Brown. This is a book that I accidentally lied to you. The thing is that I was reading this back in the spring, and when I was reading this, So when I was reading this, it had a huge effect on all the other books I was reading at the same time. So when I reviewed all those books, I had also reviewed this at the same time. And in my mind, I had categorized this as finished, but it turned out I still actually had like 100 pages to go. Now I'm not going to review it because I already reviewed it back in, but I did read the last 100 or so pages. And it is still as powerful as it was. So very much highly recommended. But yes, I did finally finish this book. I'm not lying to you anymore when I say that I finished it. So that's that. Then I knew that what I needed to finish. I had one more Zola to read before the end of the year to go along with my Read a Zola in the Rougon-Macquart series, one every 2 months. So the month of December was me reading La Faute de l'Abbé Mouret. This is, I believe, the 9th book in the series in recommended chronological order, which is the order in which I'm reading it. And this book was, again, yet another departure. It's amazing with all these books. They are so Zola, like you recognize Zola in everything, his style, his use of description, his fascination with depicting reality and realism and human nature, and it's all of its hypocrisy. And you recognize it all, but every book feels so different and so unique. And this again was one of them. So La Faute de l'Abbé Mouret, which also turns out it's the 5th book that he wrote. But yeah, La Faute de l'Abbé Mouret, like it's the English title is The Sin of Father Abbé. So you know there's a father, religion, sins. I mean, you can pretty much guess immediately what the plot is going to be. But just to tell you, we have our young Abbé Mouret, and this actually, oh my gosh, I'm like everywhere with my thoughts already. So this is the final book about one particular family within the Rougon-Macquart family. So we had 5 books that describe the parents Mouret. We had 2 books about their young son Octave Mouret, and then we had this final book about the final son and the remaining daughter of that family in this particular book. And that youngest son had become a priest, or an abbé, a priest. And he takes care of his younger sister, who seems to have a disability of some sort. Maybe she has sort of like a Down syndrome, but she's just intellectually, she's a little intellectually slow, or her progression is a little slower compared to other people. Although in this particular book, she speaks really well. So knowing that she has a disability kind of comes more from the fact that we read the previous book that said that the young daughter had a disability. But in any case, he's taking care of his young daughter, and he's in this town, and he is very well respected, and he's a very religious man. He's just a really good person, and there's another priest in his church who is very anti-women, like, even though the man is about God, he's saying, you know, a woman is best when you hit them, or like we should just tie a rock to their ankles and just drown them all. And he's just like, no need to do that. No, we won't be doing that here. So this young priest, he's a good man. He's a good man. He's straight-laced, but he's not too hypocritical, but he follows the letter of the law. until one day he meets this young woman, and he basically breaks his vows for this young woman. And it's about, the book is reaction to his breaking his vows. The book is broken up in 3 parts. The first part is the introduction of him, all the characters, and of the town that he's in. The second book is all about his relationship with the woman, and the part 3 is all about the consequences of all the relationship of that woman. And this book is interesting because it reads like a fable. It's basically a recreation of Adam and Eve and that story, which is weird because it, like, Zola hasn't done that yet. He hasn't, this entire time we've been reading the Rougon-Macquart series, he hasn't done anything where he like recounts another story, where he retells something. So this was, again, just very, very new and very, very interesting. Now, for me, my favorite parts were the first part and the third part. I think the second part does drag down a little bit. The whole Adam and Eve was very long. It's beautifully described. It's beautifully done. But because you're having an Adam and Eve situation, and you have the title of a book called The Sin of Father Mouret. I mean, you know where the book is going. There's no surprise at all in this book. But again, Zola just does it so beautifully and so well that you love it, right? And the book it's just, I mean, it's tragic. It's a tragic book. And Zola just shows how we are all prone to, no matter how morally right we all try to be, there will always be hypocrisy in man. And there will always be an aspect of man that has a tendency to destroy other men as well as ourselves. So yeah, Zola, again, hit it out of the park with this one. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it's just Zola. Like choosing a favorite out of Zola is like trying to choose like the best pastry out of all the best pastries in the world, right? Like, it becomes subjective, it becomes a question of taste, it becomes a question of your personal interests, but they're all stellar, they're all good, right? So yeah, La Faute de l'Abbé Mouret, that was the final Zola book that I read in 2025, and of course I will be continuing in the year of 2026. You can look forward to me continuing that journey. Then I decided I wanted to read another Verne. I wanted to fit in another Jules Verne before the end of the year. This ended up being my 3rd Jules Verne of the year. And I decided to go with one of his shorter works because I wanted to fit it in before I left on vacation. And that is Le Château des Carpathes. The English translation for this is the Carpathian Castle. This was a fun little adventure story. This was along the lines of almost like a little Sherlock Holmes kind of detective story almost. It's a very gothic tale, which Jules Verne has not done much of, which was, again, another, kind of like the Zola previously. It was a nice departure from his usual works. It's a lot more plot heavy of a book. It's a lot more character heavy of the book rather than science heavy. There is science, but it doesn't come in really until the very, very end. But there's really good humor, there's really good insight, and it's just well written like it always is. But it is fairly, like, this is a good book for like younger audiences who are trying to get into reading, because it's very easy to read and it's just a fun little story. It's basically about this little village in the hills of the Carpathes, and there's a legend surrounding this one castle, and that's considered to be haunted by like supernatural beings, and the villagers are very scared of it, and they do whatever they can to avoid it, until one day a sheep berger notices that there is smoke coming out of a chimney from the sort of near ruins of the castle. The castle's not fully in ruins, it's still a little bit, it still remains, but it's just showing signs of life. And so a brave young man in the village decides to go explore. A doctor is tasked to go with him, although the doctor does everything he can to avoid having to go on this little adventure. They go there and they explore, and they come back incredibly damaged by the experience. At that time, an outsider walks into the village, and in the middle of the commotion of what is going on, and it turns out he has a connection to that castle, and he decides that he is going to find out that he has to fulfill his destiny with the owner of the castle. So this was, like, a very fun story. It's very plot heavy, but yeah, just an easy breezy read. It was delightful. Because there's less science than some of his more famous books, it's a lot easier to go through. But it is a very predictable plot. It's a very predictable plot. It's a very predictable ending. The science is predictable. Like what kind of science gets into the situation or is part of the solution to the situation. It's all very predictable, but that doesn't change the delightfulness that I always have when I read a Verne. So happy to have read another one before the end of the year to continue my Jules Verne journey. Next, I read a book that I am very, very mad about. And so I think it's going to take up the majority of this video, me talking about it. And that is the book Monstrueux, or the English title Grotesque, by Natsuo Kirino. I have not read Kirino in a while. So far, I've read her most famous book, Out. I read another book by her that I will not be able to remember the title of. But so far, all of her books have been quite different in feel, which has made her very interesting, but I haven't really gotten the strongest grasp of who she is, this author. But I'm mad at this book because there are many reasons I'm mad at this book. Doesn't mean I didn't dislike the book, but I am mad at it, and I'm going to tell you why. So first of all, let's deal with the plot. The plot is about our narrator who has a sort of it's not even a love-hate relationship. She has very much a hate relationship with her younger sister. So our narrator is never named, but her younger sister Yuriko, she considers to be a monster. Yuriko was basically, they are half Japanese, half Swiss, white Swiss. And Yuriko became this beautiful woman, like highly desired. Men would do anything to be with her. And Yuriko took advantage of that. While our narrator was very much just trying to be the top of her class, she was trying to get good grades, she was trying to go through the standard path that is expected of people when they go through society. And she was just trying to like blend in and be part of Japanese society. But she just had this very, very like hateful relationship with her younger sister as they were growing up. And it turns out our narrator is narrating this book because she is telling us basically why she thinks that later on in her life, when the book is being narrated, her sister was murdered. And the question, the mystery behind this book is not even so much why Yuriko was murdered, because the narrator pretty much says that the lifestyle that Yuriko chose meant that she was always going to end in this fate. The mystery of this book is more, why was not only Yuriko murdered, but why was another childhood friend of our narrator also murdered in the exact same situation? Because it turns out Yuriko, because she was so loved by men and she didn't really care about anything, but she knew she had looks, she decided that that's all she needed, that's all she cared about. She was very sexually curious, and so she became a prostitute at a very young age. She started when she was in high school. So she was murdered as a prostitute. And the young classmate who was also murdered was also a prostitute. But the thing that's unique with her is that the other woman, Kazue, was employed in a very highly reputable company. And she only worked as a prostitute in the evening as sort of like a defiance to society. And so everyone was wondering, well, how did she become president? Why did she become prostitute? What was the need for her to become a prostitute? And what led her down her path to choose that, and how is it that these two were both murdered basically very close to one another? Is there a connection? And so the book explores that. But the thing is that, I mean, the book is called Grotesque, right? It's called Monstrueux, which would be like a monster in French. And so everyone is grotesque. Everything is grotesque. All the characters are grotesque. The scenarios they get in are grotesque. The portrayal of society is also grotesque. Like this book is incredibly dark. There is no positive light in this. Everyone chooses the wrong path, the weird path, the self-destructive path. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. So one of the reasons I was mad at this book is as I was reading it, because it's a very, very long book. It's a 700-page book. I was wondering, why is Natsuo writing this book? What is she trying to say about these women? choosing prostitution, because for a long time she doesn't really say anything. And I didn't really understand the point of the book until like the very end. It took 700 pages for me to understand this book. But when I did finish it, I was like, okay, that's where you're going. It's a comment on society. And it's a comment on society in terms of women, where basically you have, like, in society in general, across the board, but I am going to focus on Japan right now because it is a book that takes place in Japan with Japanese characters, with a Japanese author. But within Japanese society, women are expected to fill certain roles. And the question that Natsuo Kirino is asking with this book is, can women step out of those roles successfully? Okay, can they go against the patriarchy? Can they go against the expectations of being housewives? Can they go against the social expectations of what it is to be a woman? Okay, and the book just basically says no, they can't. No matter what happens with women, no matter how much you try to be better than everyone, no matter if you try to be smarter, no matter whether you have amazing grades or low grades, whether you are incredibly attractive or not attractive, whether you're incredibly successful with men or you're not, whether you end up with a good job or you end up with a bad job, if you're supposed to be in something where you're highly respected or something where everyone considers you to be trash, no matter what happens, women at all stages will always be treated the exact same way. They will always be treated as inferior. And basically, this book is saying women will never win at the game of society. They are always going to lose, sometimes at the risk of their own lives, right? So it's an incredibly powerful message. It's an incredibly powerful message. It's a very incredibly true message. I mean, the whole idea that a lot of times we can, as women, and the thing that's especially powerful is because I definitely have found myself in the situation where you're like, okay, I'm going to fulfill the role. I'm going to find a partner. I'm going to fall in love, and we're going to have a wonderful relationship, and it's going to be magical and wonderful and everything. And the thing is that when you fail at those relationships, people start wondering, what's wrong with you as a woman? What's wrong with you? Why do men not want you? Instead of asking the men what's wrong with them, they'll ask you what's wrong with you. And so you keep trying to find the rule. People keep telling you. So for me, in my situation, personally, people are like, you're perfect. Like, you're educated, you're smart, you're attractive, you're adventurous, you're fun, like, you're nice, you're considerate, blah, 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 blah. They gave me all these positive qualities. Why can't you find a man? I'm like, I don't know. If I knew the answer to that question, I would have a man by now, right? I don't know. I know I attract very, very weird men, especially in Japan. Since coming to Japan. And when back in the US, I attract actually normal, nice guys. They dump me anyway, but I do attract better men in the US. In Japan, it's just worthless to even consider Japanese men. They treat me like very poorly. But the thing is that it's just like, so then as a woman, you're like, well, I've tried, I've done this. I went the traditional route. It didn't work out. So I'm going to try something different. Now I'm going to try and I'm going to act like a man to men. I'm going to take advantage of them, right? If men just want to use a woman for sex, all right, as a woman, I will just use them for sex, right? So you can go down that route. But the thing is that you can go down that route and you can think you're incredibly empowered and you're the top of the game and everything out. But no matter what, you're still in a patriarchal society, and men are going to twist that and say, well, you're a slut, you're a bitch, you're a whore, right? You deserve nothing. You're not a high-class woman. You give it up too easily. Like, you open your legs to everybody, etc., right? So even if you act like a man, which is respected within the male world, because you're a woman, you're going to be downgraded, right? So Natsuo Kirino has this powerful message in this book about how women just can't win. But it took 700 pages to say that, okay? So I am kind of mad at that because it's a miserable 700 pages. Like I said, everyone is grotesque. Everyone is, like, terrible, right? So it's a pretty miserable way to get to this very dark, like, lack of light kind of message, okay? Now, here's the other reason I'm mad at this book. So mad, really upset. I just said this book is 700 pages, right? When I was writing, so I'm on I have my little online literary journal. It's not public. It's under a different username. I'm sure detectives can find it. Like, I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could find it. It's not that hard. But as I was feeling kind of lazy about writing the plot out myself. So I was just going to copy and paste, right? It's a private journal. It's not public. It's not something I'm publishing. Like, it doesn't matter. You can copy and paste at that point. And even then, I still always declare my sources. But when I did that, when I was with that intention, I looked up the plot on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia told me the worst news I could have. This book is censored. This book has been censored. This book has been censored. Okay? This 700-page book was censored, which pisses me off. So it turns out, and I already knew this. This is a very common thing that happens. The French book is actually translated from the English translation of the original Japanese. This is very common within literature. Japanese is a hard language to translate from. There aren't as many Japanese translators to other languages as possible. So it's very common to take text from more difficult languages with fewer translators and translate not from the original source, but translate from a translation of the original source, okay? But that's not where the censorship happened. Like, that's not where the censorship happened. The censorship happened on the American side. When the American side translated the original work into English, that's when the censorship happened, because this is what they censored. So they censored basically the end of the book, where a particular, it's not really a spoiler because I'm not going to give you too many details, but in the original work, there was underage male prostitution plot that happens at the end of the book of the original Japanese book, okay? And the American side thought that was too risky, too risque, and too awful to translate, so they cut that entire subplot out. They just cut the entire thing out. Now, I don't know personally, I don't know how much that subplot would add to the message of the book. I don't know if it detracts or it adds. I really don't know, because I didn't read the original, right? But the fact that they considered that too, because it was underage male prostitution, they're like, that's just too much, that's too sacrilegious. Even though the whole book is about underage women prostitution, right? Like, why is it when it's an underage male, is it bad? But when the whole book is about an underage female being a prostitute, you guys were okay with it. That pisses me off so much. Like, that just like confirms the whole message of the book, okay? Like, oh, when a woman is being forced into underage prostitution, oh, in patriarchal society, it's fine, right? It's okay. That's fine. That's expected. Anyone does that. But when a young boy becomes a prostitute, oh no. Sacrilegious. We don't do that here. In America? No, right? So that's what pisses me off. That pisses me off so much. The hypocrisy of the abridgment. And then just like, we're adults. People reading this book are adults. Let them decide if they want to read a book about an underage male prostitute, okay? Let them decide. Don't censor the book for us. So I'm pissed because I just read a 700-page book and I didn't even get the whole story. They cut out part of it. So really mad about that. Poo-poo on you, America. And even poo-poo on the French translation, the French editors of the French translation, because you could have done your research. You could have said, okay, translate from the English, but the part that was cut out, bring that back in, okay? So I didn't mean to do that. I actually don't like on BookTube when people are like, I'm mad at this book, and they throw it. And I'm like, well, you can still donate it and not damage it, right? I didn't mean to do that. But I'm still very mad. At the book. Like, the message, really, really good. But this book pissed me off. It pissed me off so much. All right, let me get into the last book before I finish this video. I finished off the year with my last read, a nonfiction by Cédric Gras. This book is Les Alpinistes de Staline, which is the Stalin's Alpinists. Cédric Gras, I read his other book, Les Alpinistes de Mao, so Mao's Alpinists, which is a fantastic nonfiction. It was so ridiculously like, oh yeah, Mao would totally do that, because that book was about how Mao, because he wanted to prove China was better than everyone, he wanted to create like this great image, we're better than you, we can do everything better, like just we're the top of the world, right? Like Mao had forced all these young Chinese men with and gave them the task to conquer Mount Everest. like China is going to be the first country that conquers Mount Everest. And that book was fantastic. So I wanted to read one of his other books. Cédric Gras has actually written quite a few books. And this one is about two brothers, the brothers Abalakov, in Russia. So it starts off with their youth, shortly after Red October happens, where their father was taken and he was killed. And then turns out they were raised by their aunt and uncle. And the whole story is about these two brothers who were just in love with the mountains, right? They were just in love with climbing and hiking through the mountains, but like climbing concrete mountains. That was their whole thing. But the book is basically about how the politics of Russia at that time really created very different timelines for themselves, for the two brothers, and led them to have very different remaining legacies, right? So originally you had the younger, the more handsome of the brothers, Uvgen, I think was his name. Let me look up, because it'll be easier if I talk about them giving their actual names. Evgeny, yeah, I was right. Okay, so you have Evgeny, who was the more popular brother, because he was young, and he was very handsome, right, very regal. And he became very early on the more popular brother. He conquered a bunch of peaks in Russia, and Russia was very adoring of him, right? While Vitaly, his brother, was sort of in the background, especially since Vitaly, unfortunately, due to a accident in one of the mountains, lost the majority of his fingers and a few toes. So that disabled him to quite an extent, to where he couldn't have the career that his brother had. But it basically just follows these two brothers as they are led. Like, Evgeny is loved by the Russian government, and he's giving all these career opportunities. Evgeny is very good at really not showing any sort of political inclination, so just so that he can, do what he wants to do. He doesn't want to be in politics. He doesn't want to be involved in anything. He just wants to be in the mountain and be left alone, and he wants to conquer these things. And he was able to get sponsors, and the government was, paying for all of his adventures and whatnot. And he kept very neutral journals about his experiences. It's basically all about climbing, without really getting into any heavy politics. While his brother Vitaly, although he wasn't, he was kind of doing the same thing. He was laying low, but he got caught up and was imprisoned during the Gulag era. So it's just following these two brothers had very different paths, and they sort of end up, because they end up being very different, Vitaly develops sort of jealousy of his brother, and they sort of come apart. And so it's a book about brotherly love and lack of love of a country, but love of the mountains, but doing whatever you can do to keep the love of the mountains. And upon the death of Eugenie, Vitaly becomes this actual incredible innovator and leader of the sport within Russia. But the whole thing is that both of these brothers were these amazing athletes in the mountains, but Russia never allowed them to really accomplish their dreams just because of the politics of the era. So it was a lovely little book about these two brothers. It had really good insight, and for me it was really good because he was really good at putting the timeline of what everything was going on at the same time, but using the focus of these brothers and seeing how people were manipulated to go against their colleagues, or to name drop so that they can get out of trouble. It was just really, really fascinating, and it was just, you just really feel the love of these brothers for the mountains, and it was a great little read. I do like Mao better. For me, I think Mao is just a little bit more interesting, just because of the absurdity of the time and the absurdity of having these young men being chosen to conquer Everest, even though they've never hiked a mountain in their life. I think that's really, really crazy. But I think, again, just showing the Russian politics and using these two brothers as sort of like the anchor of which all the politics can be shown, but also shows the development of alpinism in Russia and showing how like Russia really limited themselves and their own people, I think was really fascinating. So I'm very happy to have read this. And Cédric Gras is just a very admirable writer. I've been enjoying his work so far. I'm interested to see which other books of his I might be curious about, because he has written quite a book. When I was back in France, when I bought this book back in France, in the bookstore, there were a lot of his other books, and quite a few of them was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll pick that one up next time. So yeah, another good short little book from him that I really enjoyed. So there you go. Those are the books that I read and finished in the month of December, and with which I was able to finish out the year 2025. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.